Good morning. Well, I needed that. You have no idea. I needed that. I'm a grateful follower of Jesus who, after many years, I still struggle with the fear of abandonment. My name is Scott. For those of you that think that's starting off really weird and am I a drug addict or an alcoholic? Now you're wondering, aren't you? I'd love to have a picture of y'all. Y'all were. We're all in recovery, folks. We're all in recovery. Just so you know, we're all in recovery. If you were here last week, I introduced myself by saying I'm the founding pastor of Springwell, which I believe last week's intro sounded a little more impressive, right? Than to say that I'm just a fellow struggler just like you. But I want you to understand something, that behind the title, whatever that means, a founding pastor, I'm still a broken man in recovery, just so you know. The death of my father when I was 10, followed by a series, and I mean a series. I mean, Satan knows you well. He knew me well. He knew his plan of attack. He had a strategy. So with the death of my father, it was followed by a series of hurts and losses. It was like somebody was always choosing somebody else over me. Y'all ever been there? And so it left scars, and those scars are still scars that I still deal with today. One of the deepest scars, I think, of abandonment is this, which is it's the fear of being left. Maybe I should have said left out. Maybe those are two different things. Forgotten. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of being replaced. And in case you're wondering, abandonment shows up in a lot of different ways, but one of those ways is certainly trust issues. It's trust. It's people pleasing. It's jealousy. It's pushing people away before they hurt you, right? You're always, if you struggle like I have struggled with the fear of abandonment, then you're afraid somebody's going to leave. And so you push people away before they get the opportunity to hurt you. And then it will leave you questioning your own value and your own self-worth. Anybody else here? Could you just raise your hand? Thank you. I just wanted to know that I wasn't by myself. There's a few of us, right? I struggle with trust issues. And the thing that I don't trust is I don't trust people to stay in my life. I wrote this sentence, and this morning I noticed that I wrote it in the past tense. And I literally, you should be with me sometimes, all by myself in my house. I laugh at myself. I just laugh. I think my neighbors probably go, he's nuts. It's a crazy man lives next door. Well, I am. I said, I believed that if people stayed. And I thought, honestly, I really thought this was one of those areas of recovery that I had gotten a handle on. I thought I had recovered from until, I don't know, the last year or so. And then what I've realized is I'm right back to square one. So it's not what I believed, it's what I still believe, that if people stay, then I matter. If people stay, then I matter. I have value, I have worth, and if they leave me, then it's because I didn't matter. It's because I have no value. I have no worth. I'm not enough. So if you've ever struggled with your value or self-worth, then I just believe that today's message is going to speak to you. So the title of today's message is simply this. It's asking the question, why am I in the room? We're going to be in the Old Testament book of Esther. So I want to give you a little bit of background, and then we'll set up the story, and then we'll finally land in Esther 4, verses 13 through 16. So the book of Esther, and don't let me lose you right here. So I didn't tell the first service this. I probably shouldn't even tell y'all this, but we're close, right? Yeah. Like I can tell y'all stuff, right? You ain't gonna tell anybody, right? I'm feeling abandonment right now. You're with me, right? You're with me. So I did a really crazy thing. People have been talking about AI, and so I thought, I'm gonna take one of my messages, a message that I've written, and I'm gonna put it in AI and ask for help. Whew. It was awful. One of the things that AI said was, don't do the historical context. Don't do that. You're gonna lose them there. And I said, well, I beg to differ. So y'all got to you got to sit on the edge of your seat right now. Play like you're listening really intent, okay? Just fake it. I promise there's a reason. So the book of Esther is set in Persia during the reign of King Xerxes the first, actually. And the timeline is between 483 and 473 BC. It's after the Babylonian exile, and that's another really important point. So many of the Jews had returned to Jerusalem, but many had not. They were scattered all over the world. And near the end, some had returned, but some had not, including the two main characters of Esther and Mordecai. So listen, these characters, these people, these Jews are living as a minority people. Got this right out of a commentary, and the commentator says they are politically powerless, culturally vulnerable, far from Jerusalem, without a king and without a temple-centered life. So what does that mean? In other words, they were like ducks out of water. They were strange people in a strange land. They didn't feel like they fit in. They didn't fit in. And maybe you're thinking, what does all this have to do with me? It has everything to do with you if you've ever struggled with your self-worth. For example, have you ever been in a crowded room, maybe even this morning, and feel like you're all alone and by yourself? Now, if you're here this morning and that's the way you feel, then that is not what we want you to feel. That's why, for Jonathan and I both, that's why greeters are such a big deal to us. It's not some kind of church growth strategy. It has nothing to do with that, actually. What it has everything to do with is to make sure that when you walk through the door of this church is that you feel seen, that somebody has looked at you, they've welcomed you. We're really glad you're here. And we're not kidding. We are glad that you're here. And that's not just to have a warm rear end in a seat. It's because you're important. You matter to us. But chances are you could be in a crowded room, maybe even with family, and feel all alone, out of place. Have you ever wondered, why am I in the room? I mean, why am I even here? I'm just saying that if you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever felt worthless, if you've ever felt like you were living without any sense of direction, if you've ever felt like you were living, I'm speaking especially to those of us that are followers of Jesus. If you've ever felt like that you're living without any evidence of God actually being at work in your life, being active in your life, I'm talking about that you're in a situation where you've been praying and you feel like God's been silent. If that's you, then I'm telling you, this historical context makes all the difference in the world, because that's exactly how they felt. Here's another interesting interesting fact about the book of Esther. It's interesting that God is never mentioned by name. He's never mentioned by name. There are no miracles in the book of Esther. Aren't you excited? We're going to be. So why are we there? There are no miracles. There are no prophets. There's no visions. There is no audible voice of God. There is no word from the Lord in the book of Esther. This was my sentence. God seems, my word was eerily, God seems eerily silent. Have you ever been there? When it's just weird, like God is not, you're begging, you're pleading, you want to experience his presence. You want to know that he cares, that he loves you. And you say, God, if you love me, just please show up, do something. But he's eerily silent. We haven't even read a single verse. But you could be thinking, dude, this is like so me. This is where I'm at right now. This is where I'm living. I mean, if God is working in my life, I got to be honest, like I don't see it. He feels silent. He feels inactive. I'm not even sure he knows I exist. See, I told you historical context can absolutely matter. Because that's what these folks were experiencing. So let's walk through the mess. So the story opens up in chapter 1 with the king throwing a massive 6-month-long party. See, I thought I'd get more from you for that. I'm a little disappointed. I got to be honest. I mean, the 9 o'clock crowd, I get them. You know, they're the really spiritual people, right? You know, but the 11 o'clock crowd, I thought I'd say throw a 6-month-long party. Woo! Oh, you can't make it up now. And so the king gets nasty drunk and he demands that his Queen Vashti parade her beauty before his guest. And really, I mean, the bottom line is he just wants to show her off. And she ain't having none of it. She's refusing to be his muse, his arm candy, his trophy wife, his possession. In other words, she looks at the king, the man who is in power, who is in charge, and she says, I ain't gonna do it. No. And so he didn't know how to respond. People don't tell the king no. You've got to be careful to even be in his presence. You can't be sad and be in the king's presence. If you're just there and sad, even though he requested you to be present, then you could lose your life. I mean, there were rules, and she broke the rule, and he didn't know what to do. He's somewhat of a leader, so he gets all of his wise counselors together, and he says, what do I do? What do I do about her disrespect? And they say, I'll tell you what you're gonna do. Listen, you're an example. You're a man, you're the king, but you're also a man. And so you represent all the other men in this kingdom. And you gotta make sure that you give them the right example to follow. And so you kick her out. You let her know, you let the kingdom know that there is not gonna be you're not gonna tolerate this disrespect. And that's exactly what he does. And so chapter 1, I wrote this. I was pretty proud of it. Chapter 1 is all about a drunken king, political power, and pure stupidity. And all the women said, amen to that, right? So to replace his loss, a nationwide search is conducted for a new queen in the form of a beauty contest. And to make a long story short, Esther. Now don't miss this part about Esther. She's a Jewish orphan who's being raised by her cousin Mordecai. Are you following? Is taken into the king's harem. I mean, really, did you get all that? She's a Jewish orphan. She's a Jewish orphan, and no commentator even made mention of this, but for me, I wanted to know where were her aunts and uncles? I mean, so is there something about this girl that is so unworthy, that is so not worth the time, not worth the energy, that they would say, you know, I don't want to mess with her. I mean, her cousin is the one who actually adopts her and brings her in to be a part of his family. Wow. When you look at this woman's life, you're thinking, well, God certainly hadn't been active in her life, has he? Like she was brought into the world more of a curse than a blessing. So there's no sign of God so far in chapter 1 or so far in this part of chapter 2. However, if you're taking notes, you want to write this down. You can even say I said it. However, she was a hottie with a body. And I can guarantee you this, you're gonna find that in the commentary. And some of you probably think, well, that's kind of disrespectful. So on a Sunday morning, you're talking about the Bible. I think that's wrong. Well, let me just take you to Esther 2, okay? Verse 7, Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, y'all out there? Had a lovely figure and was beautiful. I told you she was a hottie with a body. I'm just saying. And on instruction for Mordecai, and this puzzled me as well, on instruction for Mordecai, the guy who had adopted her and brought her into the family, he says, listen, don't reveal your nationality. Don't tell them you're a Jew. That's a bigger deal than you think. See, to deny her nationality, to deny the fact that she was a Jew is in essence to deny her God. Wow. Well, that's not a really good start. Can we all say, boo, Esther? That was weak. Because somebody's thinking right now, well, she's got a book named after her. I know. To close out chapter 2, Mordecai uncovers an assassination plot to kill the king, and he tells Esther, and then she tells the king, and the two assassins are impaled on poles. Wow. That's nasty, isn't it? So here's what's interesting. Esther doesn't do the right thing, and she denies God. Mordecai does the right thing and gets overlooked. I just love the Bible, don't you? I mean, this is a messy story. And to be honest with you, that's why I love the Bible as much as I do. Because there are times when I can read the Bible, and rather than when I was a kid, I would look at the Bible of just being people, just being heroes, the heroes of the faith. Then there was never anything to draw me in. But when God tells the truth about his people, and he says, I can use somebody even like Esther who would deny me, I just think it's awesome. I bet chapter 3 gets better, don't you? Probably not. Let me read the first 2 verses. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of all other nobles. All the royal officials in the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman, for the king had commanded this concerning him. Now this is coming from the king. And if the king said it, it had to be. It was law. You had to do what the king said. But Mordecai said, no, I'm not, no. There's only gonna be one king that I will bow to, and it ain't you. There'll only be one other God that I will acknowledge, and that is my God, and he's the only one worthy of kneeling down to. No, I'm not gonna do it. So Haman is promoted second in command, and Mordecai refuses to bow down, and Haman's pride turns into rage. And so he plots to not just kill Mordecai. That would be bad enough. That would be what you expect, right? A man full of pride, looking out for himself. But he doesn't just plot to kill Mordecai. He wants to make sure that all the Jews are killed. Wow. So there's a death decree that is issued for a very specific date. And here we are in chapter 3, and it just looks like that injustice wins. It looks like that evil is about to be rewarded. I mean, this part of the story, it looks like that faithfulness is being punished. And most of all, most of all, it looks like God is silent. There are actually two reformers, Martin Luther and Jonathan Edwards, that did not believe this book should even be included in the Bible. In fact, Jonathan Edwards, I believe, is the one who said, this is no more than table talk. There's no evidence of God. There's no theology here. There's no Christology. There's nothing in this book that would point to the Messiah later, some 2,000 years later. There's no evidence of that. This book shouldn't even be there. Neither one ever preached a sermon out of Esther. Because God is silent. But that's how life feels sometimes, isn't it? There's those moments when the diagnosis comes and you struggle. And you struggle because you prayed. And maybe it's not the diagnosis for you, but somebody that you love, and you pray and you beg and you plead. And the thing that I've taught to people, I'm so thankful that we have honest people here who've looked at me and said, but I don't feel the presence of God. I don't feel like God's speaking. He's just silent right now. But there are those moments when the marriage collapses, a marriage that you prayed for. There's times when the job ends and our future looks sealed. It looks final. And God hasn't said a word. It feels like the curtain has closed and hope has left the stage. Sometimes there are denominations that are all about health and wealth. Give your life to Jesus and you'll be rich. But can I tell you the truth? And can I tell you that sometimes for those of us that follow Jesus, for those of us that do serve, for those of us that do give and do the best we know how to follow him and follow his will for our lives, can I just tell you that sometimes life just ain't fair. It ain't fair for us. You with me? God has, at least it feels like, left us alone in our struggle, and we wonder, or at least I have, why was I even created? Was this a joke? Lord, why did you put me into this world? I remember in one struggle in particular, hollering and screaming at God, saying things that I certainly can't repeat on a Sunday morning, and to literally say, why would you have brought me this far? Why would you have brought me to the edge of the promised land? You allowed me to look in, and then it was like you said, but no, you can't have it. That's mean. Why would you do that? So why was I created? Why am I even here? But the truth is, even when things appear hopeless and God seems silent, the story isn't over. You can only read one chapter of a book at a time. You can only read one line of a poem at a time. And just like in Esther's life, there can be a hidden moment, an unseen purpose, a future that hasn't yet unfolded. And I say that, I read it because I wanted to stay focused. Is because if you are in one of those moments, that probably at least got close to just making you mad, ticking you off if you live in Greer. You with me? Oh, really? So God is silent and now you're telling me, but God's at work? I don't see him at work. I don't feel like he's at work. And what feels like the end might actually be a setup for something greater, a turning point, a new beginning, a place where faith can grow. And let me just say, that would have been a good thing for you to say to me when I was in that spot. This is a place where your faith can grow, Pastor. I said, I'm going to show you something about faith. Okay, the absence of. Even when we can't see God, he's still at work behind the scenes. He's preparing us. He's positioning us. Did you hear that? He's doing what he's positioning us. And he's going to bring meaning out of the mess. I can testify that at being my age. That's the wonderful thing about being my age. I can look back and say, yeah, it was a mess. And it was a mess for a long time. But now I can look back. I see the purpose now. It was just a chapter in my life. So chapter 4 opens up with Mordecai mourning publicly. Well, of course he did. I mean, people are about to die. It's not just that he's about to die, his family's about to die. And as chapter 3 puts it, all Mordecai's people, so all these Jewish people are about to die because of one man's pride. So he sends a word to Esther to go to the king and to beg for mercy for her people. And you know what she says? It's kind of there in the Hebrew. She says, I don't think so, Skippy. It's kind of there. You just have to read it. She says, no. No. So you didn't even go before the king. You needed to be asked to go before the king. You just didn't show up. And then when you were invited to be at the king, you wanted to go in, as I've already said, with joy. You wanted to make him happy. You didn't want to make him sad. And she says, there's no way. I'm not going to do it. You have lost your mind. So Mordecai sends her this message, and here's what he said. This is awesome. Chapter 4, start with verse 13. Do not think that because you're here in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. Look, Esther, you can't hide. I mean, the truth's going to come out. So it's not like you're going to save your own neck. You're not. In the end, you're going to go too. For if you remain silent this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise. I love this. It will arise from another place. Now, that might not mean a lot to you, but I grew up in a church where the pastor said there are people that you need to witness to, that man at work, your neighbor, whatever. And if you don't share the gospel with that person and they die and go to hell, guess what? Their blood is on your hands. You are their only hope. I live scared to death. How about you? If you're a follower of Jesus, you go, I don't want anybody's blood to be on my hands. That is to underestimate the love and the power of God. And what he's saying is, listen to me, Esther, this is your opportunity. But if you don't do it, God loves his people. He will raise up somebody else if you don't. That's not even in my notes. It's just been burning in me for a while. Needed to come out. And who knows that you have come to your royal position, watch this, for such a time as this. You hear him? He says, don't you understand? This is why you're in the room. This is why you are where you are. This has not been an accident. The whole time. I know to be an orphan is a terrible thing. It's awful. But here's what I'm saying, that God is able to take all of these circumstances, as ugly as they may be, he's able to make beauty out of ashes. He's able to turn terrible circumstances into something beautiful. He has been at work the whole time. You didn't see him. Chapter 1, you didn't see him. Chapter 2, you didn't see him. Chapter 3, you didn't see him. Chapter 4, you're doubting. But what I'm telling you is that God put you where you are. This is why you are in the room. Woo, that's pretty awesome. So at that moment, Esther moves from passive to courageous, fearful to faithful, self-protective. Come on. If you'd have been her, you'd have done the same thing, wouldn't you? Your neck's on the line. I mean, literally. Self-protective to surrendered. Her words are, okay, I'll go before the king. I'll make my plea, and if I die, then you know what? I just die. Whew. Not because she heard a word from God, per se, because she recognized that she had a purpose. Here's the takeaway. Here's what I want you to know. Life can be messy. And you can make bad decisions and you can lose hope. I love the fact that Esther's life's not perfect. And yet she has a book in the Old Testament with her name on it. Wait a minute, did you miss the part that she denied even being a Jew? Are you glad? She wouldn't even bring it up. She didn't want anybody to know that she was willing to hide. And God said, you know what, Esther, but I still love you and I see your potential. And if you will trust me, guess what? We're gonna turn this tragedy into something beautiful. If you'll walk with me. There's times in your life when evil's gonna appear to be winning, but it ain't over till it's over. And then even with Jesus, it ain't over. You've been created for a purpose. You've been created for a purpose on purpose. You with me? I don't know if that makes sense, but felt good saying it. Your life, look at me. Your life has meaning. You were created for a purpose. You can take that to the bank. If you were here last Easter, you remember me saying this. God is working on hopeless Saturday even when crucifixion Friday feels final. So please hear me, God's not done with you. You can only read one chapter of a book at a time. You can only read one line of a poem at a time. And the chapter you're in right now might look bleak, but guess what? God's got another chapter. He's not finished with your story. And if you'll just hang on, you'll learn. This is why I've been created. This is why I am in the room. God, for such a time as this, you have planted me right here in this moment with all of these experiences so that you could use me for this purpose. So what if the pain that you've walked through, what if it didn't disqualify you? But what if it prepared you? What if the very season that you're trying to escape is the very place that God is working? What if you are in the room for this purpose? Truth of it is, I know I'm speaking to somebody this morning. This has been a heavy message on my heart. So much so the first service I felt like it was more of a Debbie Downer than a uplifting kind of message somehow. And I walked away, I went back in the office back, and I just sat down and I said, oh Lord, I know that somebody has walked into this room feeling this morning like you have no purpose. You feel like you've been forgotten. You feel undervalued. Some of you feel like God's been silent for a very long time. And here's what God told me to tell you. Right now, what he wants to do is to whisper in your ear, I've been working the whole time. I'm at work. Those commentators don't know what they're talking about. I was at work in chapter 1 in Esther's life. I was there. I was in chapter 2. Yeah, I was there. I was in chapter 3. And I was in chapter 4. And guess what? There was a chapter 5. In fact, there's 10 chapters. He's at work in your life. So maybe a prayer for you right now, just silently right there in your seat would be, God, I don't see you, but I'm choosing to trust you. That sounds better than what I used to say. I used to get angry and I'd say, God, I got nowhere else to go. I'm not going back to my old life. I don't want that. But I gotta be honest, I ain't happy where I'm at either. But I got nowhere else to go. You're it. And maybe somehow with some prayer of surrender, that's just what you're saying. I'm just gonna stay, Lord, I'm just gonna stay. If you're here this morning, you're not a follower of Jesus, then guess what? I know why you're in the room. You're in the room because what God wants to tell you is that he's crazy about you, that he loves you more than you could possibly imagine. And he knows that there's this problem that we as humans have. It started in the Garden of Eden with the fall of man. He says it's a problem. It's called sin, and you can try to be better, but you're never going to be good enough, right? No matter how hard you try, you still mess up. And he said, I got to fix that. Nobody can do it but me. And so God sent his son, Jesus, and Jesus, hanging on the cross, said, I love these people so much, I'm willing to give my life, to shed my blood to pay for the penalty for their sin. And on the third day he was resurrected. See, if you're not a follower of Jesus, that's why you're in the room today, to hear that God's crazy about you. If you're not a follower of Jesus and you'd like to be, every head is bowed and every eye is closed. No one's looking around. Maybe you just pray a simple prayer, something like this. Lord, wow. To understand the depth of your love, that you love me is overwhelming. That you would love me enough that you would be willing to give your life on a Roman cross. Wow. It's overwhelming. And I believe you're alive. I believe you're well. And to the best of my ability right now, I just want to fully surrender my life to you. I want to be your kid. I want to be adopted into your family. So I surrender my life to you. Thank you for your love. Everybody look this way. One of the things that we do here, I don't know, 4 times or so a year, because we can change it if we want to, is baptism. I love Baptism Sunday. But let me tell you why. I love it because these folks that you're looking at right now, these are people that somewhere privately, or maybe here on a Sunday morning, I don't know all their stories, but they prayed a prayer, something like you prayed a few minutes ago if you were not a follower of Jesus and wanted to be. They prayed that prayer. And here's their thing. So this morning, what they want to do is go public with their faith. They want the world to know. Yeah, God loves me. So if you're brand new to church, and you think, well, so what's the water for? It does look kind of like a casket, doesn't it? It's kind of eerie if you just look at it that way, and it does represent death. These people have privately surrendered their lives to Jesus, and their very presence in this water, they're telling you, I believe that Jesus lived. They'll lean them back. I believe that Jesus died. Submerge them under the water for a split second. I believe that he was buried. They're going to raise them out of that water. I believe that he's alive. Now let me give you the death part. I believe that he died, but I'm dying to myself. I want to bury the old me, and I want to be resurrected somebody brand spanking new. Which means all these folks are perfect. No, that's not what that means. That's not what it means. But what it means is by the power of the resurrection power of Jesus, they can be free. So as the band plays, we're going to watch, we're going to celebrate. And maybe you're here this morning. Maybe you just accepted Christ. You've never followed through in baptism. We're ready for you right now. He said, but I don't have a change of clothes. We got it all. We got everything that you could possibly need. You just come right over here. You'll talk with this group of people. They're shaking their heads. They're all excited. They're waiting on you. And we'll get you ready. We'll baptize you this morning as well. As the band plays, you come.
And faithfulness that God has brought into the lives of these people today. We literally saw dead things come to life today. Let's celebrate one more time. Yeah, come on. We would love to see you guys this Friday night for our night of worship. Remember, come early at 6 o'clock for some food trucks, fellowship together, and then we'll get started with worship at 7 o'clock. You guys have an incredible week. Hope to see you Friday and next Sunday. You guys have an awesome week.